Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. In this video we're talking about PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, N64 and more. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off here talking about Atari Jaguar emulation with BigPEmu, and BigPEmu version 1.04 has just released. If you want to check out the changelog for BigPEmu, it's included right in the zip file when you download the emulator. As for what's new, we've got some bug fixes, a brand new developer menu, and some brand new developer options, including local EEPROM options, save window position, and always on top. BigPEmu is 100% free. It's improving rapidly, and if you wanted to check it out, I'll drop a link to the website in the description below. Next up, we're talking about Xbox 360 emulation on PC with Xenia and also Xenia Canary. Both versions of this emulator got some very interesting updates. So the main build of Xenia version 1.0.2784 has just released, and also today version 1.0.2783 has released. The big change in here is the increased amount of possible labels used in finalization pass. This might reduce some crashes in certain games. And for Xenia Canary, the experimental fork of Xenia, there's a brand new feature here that I think a lot of people are going to get excited for. Simple support for loading achievement data. It's not fully implemented just yet, but this is an amazing start. Both Xenia and Xenia Canary are free and open source, and I'll drop links to both GitHubs in the description below. Feel free to check it out. Next up, we're switching over to N64 emulation and talking about Rosalie's Mupin GUI. We talked about this one yesterday with version 0.2.6. Well, version 0.2.7 just released. So in version 0.2.7, we've got a whole bunch of bug fixes and some additions here, including smooth scrolling to the list view and grid view. And another N64 emulator on PC, also related to Mupin, got a brand new update, and that's Simple 64. Version 2022 12.5 just released. And this emulator is now a little bit more accurate in terms of emulation accuracy. Both Rosalie's Mupin GUI and Simple 64 are free and open source, so I'll drop links to both in the description below. Feel free to check them out. Moving on, and we're talking about Nintendo DS emulation with NooDS, and NooDS also got a brand new update. So the latest rolling release of NooDS includes some bug fixes and some improvements, including input binding on Android. NooDS is available for a whole bunch of different operating systems, including Nintendo Switch, Vita, Windows, Mac, Linux, and Android. It's free, it's open source, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. Feel free to check it out. Moving on, and we're not really talking about an emulator, more or less an emulator tool, or a ROM tool, a ROM compression tool, NAMDHC. If you like to compress your ROMs into CHD format, well, this might be something to check out. NAMDHC version 1.13 just released, and we've got some cleanup and some bug fixes. It is free, it's open source, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. Included is CHD Man, which a lot of people have been asking about. But moving on, and we're talking about PlayStation 4 emulation with FPS4, and FPS4 keeps marching forward with improvements. Basic X-input controller support has now been added. It's not perfect, but at the same time this is great if you don't like using mouse and keyboard to play PS4 games. Next up, we're talking about Fightcade, arguably one of the best ways to play some retro games online, and Fightcade has just received a brand new update. If you are currently using Fightcade, it should automatically update to version 2.1.38, which contains an update to Final Burn Neo, which is the arcade emulator. Arguably one of the biggest points in here is the fix for most false positives with turbo detection. A lot of seasoned arcade players are very fast at pressing buttons, so fast in fact that Fightcade thought they were using turbo. Hopefully that fixes this. Next up, if you've got an Odin Pro, you might want to check out this Reddit article. I'll drop a link to it in the description below. This may work for you or it may not, but someone has apparently found a way around the CPU governor, and that's not using performance mode. Some people are saying performance mode works the exact same, and some people are saying that this method is getting extra performance out of their device. Moving on, and apparently there's a brand new app in the works that's going to be hitting the Google Play Store called Alpha Touch. Someone has returned to Castle Wolfenstein up and running on Android. I'll drop a link to this video in the description below as the app hasn't been released yet. But moving on and still talking about Android here, but with Nintendo Switch Emulation and Skyline. Yesterday we talked about Skyline Edge version 20 releasing. Well, today, Skyline Edge, the paid early access testing build of Skyline, got another brand new update, version 21. Unreal Engine 4 games are starting to boot. Monster Hunter Stories 2 is looking a heck of a lot better. WarioWare Get It Together is in-game and fully playable. Link's Awakening is looking better. And South Park The Stick of Truth is getting between 15 to 30 frames per second on a Snapdragon 870. Now, the Edge version of Skyline is a paid early access version of Skyline. You can pick it up if you support Skyline. If you're not supporting Skyline, there's really no worries here because these changes make it into the mainline build within a week or two at max. And last up here, if you like Game Boy Advance and you're still in the holiday spirit, you might as well check out the worst Game Boy Advance Christmas games hosted by Good Enough For Me. This video is it's very interesting, and it's got some very interesting ROMs. If you haven't checked out Good Enough For Me or GEFM, I do recommend checking out that channel. There's a bunch of information about homebrews and retro handhelds, and it's presented in a very interesting format. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a ton today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.